She is my favorite character by far because all she's doing is shaking her ass and having amazing parties. Her hair looks great. She's a woman about town. And quite frankly, she was the original thirst trap. Jimmy Stewart cannot even control himself. He calls her Miss Torso. And I thought to myself, this is just the 1950s way of saying sugar tits, right?
Meet Sara and Samantha.
Two cousins obsessed with exploring the vast pop culture landscape, one recommendation at a time.
In each episode, one clueless cousin shares real-time reactions as they navigate the twists and turns of a pop culture topic selected by the other.
From travel to movies,
Little Debbie's to trashy novels.
Get ready to eavesdrop on the candid reactions and dynamic conversations you can only have with family.
This is Foreign and Familiar.
Welcome to Foreign and Familiar. I am Samantha.
And I'm Sara.
Sara, as always, amazing to see your face. But what was such a nice surprise when we logged on today is we're essentially twinning, and we didn't even know.
We're twinning because we are both working out.
We're getting cute little rose-colored shirts. So, and also it's the second Chicago 90-degree day of the year / in a row. So it will drop down to, I think, a whiplash 65 tomorrow. But hey, we live while we can in the Windy City. You know, Sara, we should probably rethink our merch line. We are now in season 4. We have so many ideas of merch. And I think that that's something that we should be doing because for no other reason, we can be podcasting in our merch and getting a kick out of it because we just got a kick out of wearing the same colored shirt. We giggled for about 4 minutes.
As exciting as this was, I can't even imagine how exciting it would be to podcast in our own merch. And I know somewhere on my computer is some merch designs that I had worked on maybe when we first started at like 10 o'clock at night. I was just bored and decided to work on it. So we might have to revive those and see if there was anything good in that initial
I think
draft.
our problem was that there were too many good things. And I think the challenge is, Sara, is that we're designing the merch for an audience of 2, which is ourselves. So I think we'll need to bring in some other people to bring an editing eye in as we get the merch coming. But family listeners, if you would be interested in merch, please let us know because here's the thing. We're going to make a line anyway, regardless. But it would be nice if people want it. Yeah, we're going to do it anyway.
We're interested in merch. So it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks.
That is true. That is true. Well, I know that one of the slogans that we definitely are considering putting on a t-shirt, a bumper sticker, a mug, is that podcasting is always sweeter with a snack. And as all of our family listeners know, our snack of choice is the Little Debbie snack cake. So, Sara, what snack cake are we reviewing today?
So today we are talking about what I think of as a Little Debbie classic, the Pecan Pinwheel, which is a soft pastry rolled with cinnamon spice and pecan pieces.
And do they come in a 2-pack, Sara?
I believe they come in a 2-pack. Here's the thing is I haven't had a pecan spinwheel in so many years. I think when we tried them recently for the pod was the first time in maybe 10, 15 years that I've had one. I know they used to come in a 2-pack, and I don't remember if they still do.
I think they have to.
I think so too.
So, Sara, when you say that you view this as a classic Little Debbie, that's a little bit shocking to me. So I would assume that you have a rich history with the Pecan Pinwheel.
Yeah, these were a staple in my house growing up. So when I think of like classic Little Debbies that I always had, it was the spinwheels, the Swiss rolls, which of course we just called ho-hos no matter what brand they were, and the brownies. And so these are definitely, they bring back memories. And I think, honestly, they're one of those things that I don't know if they're actually really good or if it's just good because it brings back memories, but I definitely enjoy eating them.
Well, I can tell you my opinion on that.
Oh, yes, please do.
I think when you are eating a Little Debbie pecan spinwheel, you are tasting and enjoying the memories of your childhood more than the product in and of itself. And let me say why. I had high hopes for these. These would be perfect with a cup of coffee. In fact, it's how I tried them. It's how I will continue to eat them in the morning. I love a good coffee cake. I know we have that in the lineup. We've teased that twice. We need to make that happen on an episode coming
Yes,
up.
for sure.
Now, with the pecan spin wheel, I think that they're very small. And because of that, it just ate really dry to me. I was envisioning a sticky bun. I love a pecan sticky bun. I love a cinnamon roll. Like those yeasted, syrupy icing contraptions are perfect. These things that you, yes, are saying at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to throw off my entire day and it's going to be worth it for a cup of coffee or this bite. I think it's a very tall ask for me to expect Little Debbie reach that level in the pecan spin wheel, although we have seen them reach very high highs with the turtle pecan brownie and some of the other things.
Right.
I just felt like it had an essence of pecan on it. The overwhelming thought that I had when I was eating it is a tiny little cinnamon roll with no icing that eats dry. I'm not mad at it. I think I'd probably try it again. Again, it's like a cute little pastry treat, but it is not something that I pick up off the shelves since I've tasted it. I think it's a pass for me.
Right. I think, like I said, I wasn't sure if it was good or if it was just like memories. I certainly will not be buying these as my first choice, Little Debbie. I did remember when I was eating it how dry they were. I think I used to pull them apart and like eat the outside first, and then the middle, which is more moist than the outside, was more enjoyable that way. They're definitely not a cinnamon roll. I think, like you said, that like yeasty dough. These are more like a cakey dough that's just rolled with nothing on it. Not my first choice by any means.
If you're doing some sort of mass catering event or something, you could grab a box and I think people would be happy. I'm thinking about church gatherings and rec rooms or mothers breakfasts or community events like that. I think that they work and they do the trick, but we're pretty bougie when it comes to our baked goods. So again, I will not say that I'll never have one again. In fact, if people had them, I probably would eat one. But again, it's just not a purchase for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if it were out on a breakfast lineup, I would pick these over a Danish. But I would certainly pick a chocolate, honestly, probably any muffin flavor over these.
I'm shocked at that.
Not
a Danish, not even a cheese Danish.
No.
Or a cherry.
No, I feel like I've never had a good enough Danish that has made me choose it as a first choice. I'm always like, well, this is here, I guess I'll eat it. But I've never had one that was life changing. So, no,
Sarah, I find this to be absolutely shocking because I know Costco has great Danishes. You know what my favorite is I never can decide, although I always end up doing, do I want a cheese Danish or a cherry Danish? Sometimes you get the Danishes that have half cheese on one side, half cherry on the other side, and then you just keep switching the ends. And it's fantastic. But that's something we can dig in on a future episode. Speaking of things that maybe we love in theory, but the execution may have been a little bit dry, let's get into our topic today. This is Sarah's choice for me to review. Sarah, what are we reviewing today?
Wow, what a tee up.
I'm just trying to make that's not a preview of how I feel about it. I just think that it's probably a fair tee up. That's all. If you want a separate tee up, we can do different tee up.
No, it's fine. I love it. So today we are talking about the 1954 Alfred Hitchcock thriller, mystery, psychological thriller, Rear Window, starring Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly.
and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Directed and written by Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes.
This is your first recommendation of season 4. So, Sarah, why did you recommend this and why do you think that I would like it?
Couple of reasons that I picked this. First of all, as we kind of already highlighted, we've got this stellar cast of just people who are known for being great actors, actresses, directors. We have Alfred Hitchcock, classic. We have Jimmy Stewart. Personally, I love Jimmy Stewart, and Grace Kelly. Hard to argue with that. This is a super well-known Alfred Hitchcock film. And also, I know we've kind of been diving into horror. Sam, you have kind of helped me explore the horror genre more than I have in the past. And one of the reasons I picked this movie is because as a kid, this was probably the scariest movie that I had ever watched. And there were years of my parents laughing at me for having nightmares of Raymond Burr just kind of showing up in my house in the middle of the night. So this is kind of my little horror tie-in of my experience being terrified from a movie.
I do think it's really, okay, I'm going to say lovely, and that's not the appropriate word in this context, but you know, growing up, we saw The Predator and Terminator 2, Jason and Freddy, and you're scared of the guy in rear window. I keep saying
Yes.
rear window. And I will get to when he kind of pops up, and I know the exact moment that you are talking about. Can I ask, have you watched a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's things, or was he a prominent director in your house growing up?
I wouldn't say prominent, but I think that kind of around that circle. So like growing up, I think my parents had, let's call it just in like an older taste in TV, film, movies. I think much like we do now, they were very nostalgic. Let's watch this that I loved as a kid. I grew up a lot with my grandparents, spending time with them. So it was a lot of Gunsmoke and Bonanza and these older TV shows and older movies. So I think it was Hitchcock adjacent just in the time period that I was exposed to. So it was a lot of Hitchcock. We did The Twilight Zone. So I think this was probably, anybody brings up horror, it was like, well, let's watch these scary movies. So not necessarily big Hitchcock fans, but definitely appreciate, let's say, film at that time period.
I love that. I really enjoy Alfred Hitchcock. I think everybody goes straight to Psycho when that name comes up in pop culture. I have recently rewatched Strangers on a Train. Have you seen that?
I believe so. It's been a while.
So that can be a future episode.
Yeah.
As well as Peacock has an Alfred Hitchcock hour from the 50s. So in the past, I guess it's adjacent and similar to The Twilight Zone, where it's an hour-long show and Alfred Hitchcock is actually on screen and he's narrating it. So I've watched some of that in recent years. I'd say, maybe even as recently as last year. So I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock. I say that and then the same breath tell you that I had no idea until his name came up on the screen that he wrote and directed this. So I think the term big fan, I might be stretching a little bit. I was excited when I did see that.
This isn't a stereotypical Hitchcock. I don't think it's quite as, I don't know if dark is the right word, as things like Psycho. Then we have like The Birds as well. So
I did just rewatch The Birds too. Yeah, so I have been on a Hitchcock rewatch. Yep.
Yeah, so I think this is a little more mild, if you will.
I would disagree. Well, here's the thing. I do think it's more mild in the sense of from an action perspective, but I think that it's got the hallmark characteristics of the psychological thriller, right?
Right. So we just don't have maybe as much violence happening. And with the way that this is shot too, everything that happens is kind of off screen. So there's a lot that is implied that we don't see.
Let's tee it up, Sarah. What are the cultural notes that our family listeners need to know if they have never watched Rear View before, or maybe familiarizing themselves with Hitchcock for the first time?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of things to know about the way that this movie was actually made. So first of all, it is a very limited perspective. We see everything from the apartment of the main character. Everything that happens in the movie is from his point of view. Call it like the unreliable narrator, if you will, that everything that we're seeing, we have to trust that he's being truthful about in some way. So we have this voyeurism aspect. The entire plot occurs within this courtyarded area. So we never leave, like I said, the apartment, but then we also never see anything outside of this courtyard out past his back window. The score is a diegetic score. I think I'm saying that correctly, meaning that the only music that is playing during the actual movie is music that is happening somewhere in the scene. So there's not actually a score to this movie. There's a song playing during the opening and the closing credits, but all of the other music is music that is happening in the actual courtyard or surrounding areas, which I didn't actually know until I rewatched it for the pod. I think if you're not looking for it, you don't realize that it's happening.
I would agree. I would say now that you say that, yes, but
Right.
I didn't clock it while I was watching
Yes, on a rewatch, you can definitely pick it up, but if you don't know ahead of time, it's kind of hard to notice. In terms of perception, this was nominated for several Academy Awards, all to do with filming, as I'm sure you can imagine. Best Director, Best Screenplay, Cinematography in Color, 1954, yes. So that makes sense. And then also the Best Sound Recording as well. Nominated, but didn't win any of those categories. This has been listed on the American Film Institute's Top 100 Movies multiple times. In recent years, the movie Disturbia from 2007, I think, starring Shia LaBeouf, is actually a remake of this.
There's no way.
Yes, with I have so much. Just wait.
Okay.
A remake with a couple of minor differences. First of all, he's under house arrest. He doesn't have a broken leg, and he also suspects that his neighbor is a serial killer, not just a murderer, as we'll see in this.
I know that exact movie, and yes. I'm sure we are #merch slogan gonna get into it. However, I'm just saying right now, it's a pretty extensive reimagining.
That's fair. I haven't seen it, so that can be a future episode too. I did note some of the similarities there.
Where in Hitchcock's career is this movie placed?
There was a set of, I think, 5 or 6 films that he had to deal with Paramount to make.
It is after Strangers on a Train.
Mm-hmm.
It is after Dial M for Murder, but it is before Psycho and the Birds. So I would say probably right in the center here.
Right in the middle, yeah.
He worked with Grace Kelly on 3 films, and it looks like this was Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, and To Catch a Thief.
Worked with Jimmy Stewart for 4. Wrote Rear Window, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and Vertigo. Which I think of those 4, he's most known for Vertigo, and then probably Rear Window after that. I do have one more cultural note to throw in. We do have some T Swift tie-ins with Rear Window. First one being her dress in the music video of Me is inspired by one of the dresses that Grace Kelly wore in the film. And she is actually quoted also as saying that she drew a lot of inspiration from the voyeuristic elements in the filming of Rear Window for her writing of a lot of the songs in folklore, specifically the ones where she is writing about characters that she's kind of viewing from the outside.
Interesting. I don't know if I buy it, but interesting.
Well, the dress you can look up, so...
Yeah, that obviously we can look up, yes. Of course. Okay. Here's the thing. In my core, it's just hard for me sometimes. Everybody knows this. We don't have to belabor the point.
We'll cut to break and we'll get into the plot of Rear Window.
We are back getting ready to dig into Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. Let's get started. We are set in 1955 in a courtyard.
I thought for this, we should maybe kind of establish who some of the characters within this courtyard are. Some of the notable characters, and a lot of them we actually don't even know the names of. We just have the names that Jeff has given them. So starting with Miss Torso, who is a professional dancer. We see her frequently practicing, entertaining guests in her studio apartment. Anything to add on Miss Torso?
I have so many things to add on Miss Torso.
Oh,
Number
great.
one, she is my favorite character by far because all she's doing is shaking her ass and having amazing parties. Her hair looks great. She's a woman about town. And quite frankly, she was the original thirst trap. Jimmy Stewart cannot even control himself. And I will say it is funny because every time the camera pans over to her, she is just kind of like, like just like Jessica Rabbit, like bouncing up and down, wiggling, full sexy baby, doing the whole thing. He calls her Miss Torso. And I thought to myself, this is just the 1950s way of saying sugar tits, right? It's how he's saying he's into her, he likes watching her dance. And I like to watch some of these old movies sometimes because I like to think, what was acceptable at the time for them to say, well, I think she's really smoking hot. And it was by calling her Miss Torso. Let's also get real, though. She bends over an insanely long amount of time to figure out what is in her fridge. Like maybe she's filming a Sunny D commercial where she's got to move every single beverage off to find the Sunny D in the back. But she's definitely the arm candy. And I think that there's more beneath the surface than what we see. Of course, we never find that out because she's literally just a torso that shakes, doesn't have a single line of dialogue. But I like to think that she's owning her empire in the 50s.
Yeah, I like to think that there's more to her as well, but for our viewing purposes, she's basically just the sex appeal of the movie. That's pretty much it. Next, we have a songwriter, no nickname. He's just a songwriter with writer's block. And actually, the song that he is composing is the song that plays at the end, entitled Lisa, who is Grace
Very
Kelly's
nice
character. So that is some of the soundtrack that is playing in the movie. We also have a newlywed couple that has just moved into the courtyard area. My only note is that she is insatiable.
Well, I think it's a newlywed thing. And also, they do finally close the curtains. I don't know how anybody in this movie doesn't, prior to when the neighbor comes over at the end, say, Jimmy Stewart, get a life, you peeping Tom. Right. He's a peeping Tom.
Oh, he for sure is. And nobody has an issue. Nobody even notices, really, that he's just...
Because they all have lives.
Yes, that's true. We also have a couple with a dog who, it's in the middle of summer. It's very hot. So they've just taken their mattress out onto the balcony and they have this little basket that they use to take the dog down to go to the bathroom and bring it back up. Yeah,
I just think it's irresponsible dog ownership. If you have a dog, you have to take that dog out and not trust the courtyard people to be kind to him. And I think that they learned that lesson the hard way.
Unfortunately. The last two characters of note that I have, a Miss Lonely Heart. She is an older woman, I would say, who is trying very hopefully to find romance, and it's not working out so well for her.
No notes on her. I hope that she found the love she was so desperately seeking.
Me too. And our last character, Lars Thorwald, and wife, I guess, played by Raymond Burr, the stuff of nightmares to 10-year-old Sara. He is the character that we spend the most time watching.
I think what's so interesting about this movie and what makes it such a feat in directing and cinema and story is, to your point, it is all contained through the window, through Jimmy Stewart looking into these other characters' windows. So I thought it was very interesting because we put together a lot just seeing people in their apartments, in their habitats, what they're doing when they don't know that they're being watched. The other thing I would say is that I wanted to look it up and it turns out it was not the case, but this is just written, I feel, for stage. I think you could have taken this movie and put it directly on Broadway, make a play for it. There's one set piece. People are coming in and out of the windows and in and out of Jimmy Stewart's apartment. So I am surprised that this has not made its way over to stage because I think it is very stage friendly. But I really like when movies kind of stick into a very specific type of medium and or platform. I felt like I was watching a play, which is what honestly helped keep my interest a lot, given the fact that it is such minimal dialogue and minimal characters that you get to know beyond just viewing them through the window.
Yeah, I actually thought while you were talking that it was originally written as a play, so I had to double check, and it's based off of a short story written by Cornell Woolrich, and he just had a compilation of short stories called It Had to Be Murder, one of which was Rear Window. So I don't think that it was written for stage like I originally thought, but I do agree it's positioned very well to be a stage play.
Sara, let's adapt it for the stage. What are we doing?
Let's do it.
This is our ticket to own an island. Let's adapt it. I think the Great White Way and Broadway would love to take a chance on two kids from the Foreign and Familiar pod that, you know, really one of them has a generational trauma tied to the material, and one of them, you know, can't even remember the Alfred Hitchcock movies that he's done. I think somebody would write us a blank check. If I'm being honest, I think that's our next project after Faux Fan Pod.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's our next scheme, our next investment. So the main character, Jeff, is a photographer who was injured on one of his photography adventures. He does like action shots, I guess. If you look at some of the pictures in his apartment, he's
National Geographic or
National
something
Geographic.
Like that.
He's taking pictures of these, you know, gorgeous faraway places, but he's also like taking pictures of, I think, like wars that are happening. So it seems like it's a very intense job. And he was injured. He has a broken leg. And so he is stuck in his apartment in the summer, just staring out his window. So he does have a caretaker that comes in named Stella. And she, I think they say that her care was like part of the insurance company taking care of things. But I don't even know that I'd call her a nurse because she does like everything.
So a couple points on all of this. Number one, I think that Jimmy Stewart's character, and we will get into this, is a bastard. Okay. And I get it. It's the 50s. When they say that you're born at the time that you're born, and it's the right time that you're born, I would never survive the 50s. I would never have survived the Salem witch trials. I would be the first one that was burned but this whole time I was watching it, I just am thinking, and you know, I have notes on some of the reactions and some of the thoughts here, but can we talk about, he has a broken leg, and the way that this is set up is he is a Helen Keller invalid that can't do anything. He can't leave the apartment. He can't cook. He can't. It actually makes me feel like he won't, right? Versus he can't. But let's talk about how everybody in his life or the insurance company or whoever said, you know what? We're going to get you up into your apartment, put a wheelchair in your apartment, and then you can just sit in your apartment for 6 weeks and never leave. That is our recommended path of remediation and healing for you. And you can just stare at what's going on in the courtyard. The caretaker is fantastic. She is sassy. She has really good advice for him on a lot of different things, especially when it comes to Lisa, which we will get to for sure. But when you say she does everything, I mean, are we talking about the in-depth baby oil back massages that, I mean, he's got a broken leg. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this movie several times, and on a rewatch this time, I was really like keyed into that for some reason. And I guess I just kept thinking they needed a reason to keep her in the scene for the dialogue. And I think they were just running out of things to do because yes, his leg was broken. There was nothing wrong with his back. He wasn't like on a hospital bed in danger of developing any sort of bed sores. He was moving from the chair to the bed. So why she was, yes, doing like an in-depth oil massage. And I think she even referenced like, oh, the insurance company's going to be happy with this. I have no idea what her job description, what she made him breakfast. I really have no, so she's not like a home health nurse. I have no idea what her actual job description was.
I would love to be prescribed back massages for a broken leg. I think I would go break my leg right now if I had to, quite frankly. I will say the actress that played her absolutely crushed it. She was so dynamic. She had so much charisma. I actually ended up Googling her, seeing what else she was involved in. And I thought that she was nominated for an award for this, but maybe she was not. Probably not. You would have gotten that.
Well, it wasn't an Academy Award, but there were some other smaller awards that they had been nominated for various things. So it's possible she was nominated for one of those.
Perfect. Anyway, Thelma Ritter.
Thelma Ritter. Good old Thelma, who plays Stella. So yes, I also am a big fan of Stella. I was excited pretty much anytime that she was on screen.
Thelma Ritter has been nominated for 6 Academy Awards for supporting actress. That is the most of anyone in that specific category, and she never won. It ties her with Deborah Kerr and the night bitch herself, Amy Adams, who have the second most nominations without any wins.
She has a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical, New Girl in Town. So there, she finally won something.
Finally won something. So we have found that we are big fans of Thelma Ritter.
Yes. So
stealing the show. It's hard to steal the show in a Hitchcock, Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly role, but she kind of does steal the show.
Yeah, she for sure does. Mm-hmm. So speaking of Grace Kelly, she is Jeff's other companion during this 6-week stay in his apartment. So Grace Kelly plays Lisa, his girlfriend. Their relationship is a little undefined in the beginning, I think. So it's hard to...
It's only undefined because Jimmy Stewart wants it undefined.
Yes. Yes.
They are courting each other. They are seeing each other. She is over there every night, and they are really hot and heavy making out.
Yes.
The whole movie. Even for the 50s, I'm like, oh my goodness, right?
Right, which is why I wanted to definitely talk about this, because she stays over there like overnight, which I feel like was a very big thing for the 50s.
Well, they do that one scene where the investigator sees her overnight bag and makes a face, and Jimmy Stewart looks at him and says, be careful, don't say anything. So I agree. I thought this is wild. And here's the reality of the situation. She comes in, she's beautiful. She's Grace Kelly, who, again, for our family listeners that may not know, ended up being the Princess of Monaco, married the Prince of Monaco, and was an American princess over in France. She set the blueprint, and she was just wonderful, beautiful. I really enjoyed watching her. Honestly, when she walked on screen, I caught my breath a little bit, and I thought the Grace Kelly Barbie doll looks exactly like her. Have you seen it?
I have, but I don't know that I've ever compared it side by side.
It looks exactly like her. In fact, here's the one in Rear Window. Oh, Sarah, if you're a Rear Window person, I'm looking at this right now. Walmart has it, Sarah. It's a collector's edition, and it's in the dress that I do see now is the Taylor Swift dress.
Yes.
It is the Taylor Swift dress. I agree.
Oh my gosh. You're totally right. That looks just like her.
It looks exactly like her. Anyway, they are courting, they're making out, and Grace Kelly, it's very clear, thinks that they're going to get engaged. This is a big topic of conversation between, I would say Grace Kelly was the Queen of Monaco, so I don't think I can use Queen Thelma Ritter, but Thelma Ritter, who we stan, is telling Jimmy Stewart, She likes you. Everybody's crazy over her. She's over here nursing you back to health in some ways that even the insurance company won't pay for me to do, Jimmy. She's here to lift your spirits. And essentially, at the very beginning, here comes little man himself. He sees Miss Torso shaking her ass and jiggling all across the courtyard. And then all of a sudden he starts with, well, I don't really know if I want to be tied down to Grace Kelly of Monaco. I think, I like watching Miss Torso, so I have cold feet.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. What would we say, just a socialite? Is that what
I think so.
that we would call her? Maybe a model to some degree, because she references kind of working with some designers a little bit. So she is definitely out of his league for sure.
100%.
I think, and he knows that. She does not care. She is so into him. Does not care one bit about their differences in status. He is very aware of it, and definitely uses it as an excuse for not wanting to commit to any sort of long-term relationship with her.
She even tells him, I will go on the road with you. I will live in a hut in Ethiopia and I will help you take photos. And he basically tells her, I don't want you to do that. You actually really wouldn't like it. He's very, I think, rude to her from the beginning to the end. So they have this right at the beginning. She's over and they have this pretty intense conversation where she wants to make it work. She's idealistic. He starts just saying, here's all the ways that you live and why it would never work. And when I say he's a bastard, it's you can have these conversations without wrapping it up in so much condescension that she's stupid, because she couldn't be anything farther from stupid, which we will get to in the movie. But she ends up saying, okay, well, I need to take some time to think about this then, because you're being very direct that you don't see a future here and I need to think about this. I have other people that would want to date me and I have to figure this out. He says, Sara, and I quote, can't we just keep it status quo? I mean, Jimmy Stewart,
he's getting everything that he wants out of it.
Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window is the poster child for fuckboys in the 50s. And the gall that he would. And I mean, again, it's not even that he was being honest with her about what he was thinking. He was taking joy in making her feel stupid. And she says that to him at some point. You've had your fun. This is fine. I'll leave. Unfortunately, she does come back. But something pretty significant happens between the departure and the next time she arrives.
Yeah, so 2 last minute things, and then we will dive into the plot of this movie. First of all, both Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly, I forgot this, are from Pennsylvania. Quick little tie-in.
I had no idea about, no, I did know that Grace Kelly was from Philadelphia.
Yes, and Jimmy Stewart, I think, was from like the Scranton area. Or no, I'm sorry, he's from Indiana, because the Jimmy Stewart Museum is there, where you can go watch It's a Wonderful Life around Christmas time.
Have you done that?
I have.
Wow. Okay. So you're like a big Jimmy Stewart fan.
And wrote a report on him in high school and everything. Yeah,
this is only the second Jimmy Stewart movie I've ever seen other than It's a Wonderful Life. And I thought that he talked with his voice all dynamic and wavery and stuff just for It's a Wonderful Life. But then I realized that that's just how he talks and acts.
Yeah. Last quick thing. We talked about the overnight bag. Sam, have you done any research on this overnight bag that Lisa brings?
No.
So you can still buy it today. It's a Mark Cross, and it is priced at $3,990. And it is listed as the Rear Window overnight case in black.
I think what's going to happen, Sara, is that I'm going to start seeing all of these references from Rear Window in the world that I didn't even know. It was a nice bag now that you think of it. I mean, $3,000 in today's, that's like a Louis Vuitton.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what made me look it up, but I was like, that's the smallest suitcase I've ever seen. I can't believe she fit an entire outfit in there. I need to know more. And
Spoiler alert, Sarah, I think she was just fitting in, a fresh set of panties and a toothbrush.
I mean, she fit that whole
she does have the robe.
She had the whole
it is a nice robe
in there. It was really nice.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, we're going to cut to break now that we've established all of the characters. And when we come back, we will dive into the exciting plot of Rear Window. All right, we are back from break. We have been introduced to everybody in the courtyard. We know about Jeff and his caretaker, Stella, and Grace Kelly, Lisa Fremont. So let's dive into the actual plot of this movie. So there is, I would say, a good maybe 15-20 minutes at the beginning, just kind of setting all of this up. So it does take a minute, especially because we're not hearing a lot of dialogue. It's just kind of us observing and making inferences about what is going on. So anyway, Jeff is staring out of his window all day, every day. And he actually gets chastised by both Stella and Lisa multiple times for not doing anything other than staring out his window.
For being a peeping Tom.
Yes.
And not having his own life.
Exactly. One night, Jeff is woken up when he hears a woman scream. He hears glass shattering. He's quite suspicious, kind of looks around. Nothing seems to be amiss in the courtyard. Goes back to sleep, and he is woken up by a thunderstorm, I believe, and he sees Thorwald leaving with his aluminum case that he would have jewelry samples in, and he sees him leaving and coming back multiple times in the middle of the night, which doesn't really make sense for a jewelry salesman, so he becomes quite suspicious.
His mind starts running amok.
Right, so he, I think, had observed before this that Lars Thorwald's wife seemed to be sick she was in bed frequently, but she was also really nasty to him. She's frequently laughing at him. And
I would say this. I think that's Jimmy Stewart's perception. To me, it is a co-toxic relationship that ends in domestic violence when Lars kills his wife. So I just think on this pot, Sarah, we need to give some weight to the wife laughing and making Lars feel terrible, because I think he deserved it.
I mean, he killed her, so yeah.
I mean, listen, he ends up getting the last laugh, but, I think she was reading the room appropriately, right, would be my guess.
And again, we have an unreliable narrator. Everything we're learning is from Jimmy Stewart's perspective, so there's that. He also notices a couple of other things happening that he finds suspicious. First of all, he doesn't see the wife. The blinds are now closed. Previously, they had been up. He doesn't see Thorwald going in, taking food to his wife. And so, of course, he is using his imagination at this point because he has literally nothing else to do. So he starts to assume that Lars Thorwald has killed his wife and removed her body with the sample case that he uses to show off his jewelry samples.
A couple other things he does as the unelected and unofficial neighborhood watch and the president of that. He sees when Lars does open the blinds, which I think, Sarah, as we're talking, it's suspicious because it's so hot that he would have his blinds down. Mm-hmm. When he does open his blinds, he is cleaning a large machete, a huge one, that probably could take down an elephant in the full view of the courtyard.
No shame, no concern that anybody is watching. He also is seen leaving his house with a woman who we can't see her face or anything about her appearance. And we also see that he makes multiple long distance calls throughout the movie to add to the suspicion.
And what's interesting about this is it is all self-contained in the courtyard, and it sounds like a lot of different things that are happening. So just for our family listeners that maybe haven't seen it, it's all limited view. Some of it's obstructive. We can see people leave the courtyard, and we can see a sliver of, I think it's an Italian restaurant, Sarah, across the street from the courtyard. You can see a sliver of it between the alleyway of the two buildings to exit and go into the courtyard. So the viewers have to infer a lot along with Jimmy Stewart. So I think what's interesting is it was a little bit as a first-time viewer and not knowing which of the windows to pay attention to, because I didn't Google it ahead of time. I didn't read the plot, like any of that. Like, we go in blind to these, right? And so it does a good job. It is a little bit slow, but it does a good job at the beginning introducing all of these characters straight through Jimmy Stewart's perspective. What I appreciate about Hitchcock in general, and what I really don't like about a lot of mediums today, is there's zero subtlety, there's zero confidence that the audience can understand and grasp what's going on, down to the point where a character will be reading an award and the character will say the name of the award out loud for the audience, right? And so I would say Rear Window. I keep messing it up, and I'm going to mess it up a million times. So our family listeners just need to have grace. But Rear Window, I would say it's, what I like about it is that Jimmy Stewart is not talking about his findings or his thoughts when it's just him in the apartment himself. He only vocalizes what he's thinking when somebody else is in his apartment. So as a viewer, you get the opportunity to try to piece together what this information means and what is valuable information, what isn't. And also you get to make your own inferences without having to rely solely on Jimmy Stewart's perspective.
But then you also get confirmation whenever he's discussing it with whoever's in the room with him, or at the end when everything is kind of revealed.
I also will say, though, I could have used a little bit of it because again, I didn't know what to pay attention to or not pay attention to. And I say this in general. So my mom's side of the family, so I have a Pittsburgh police officer in my family. My grandfather was on the bomb squad at the Pittsburgh police for his entire career. My cousin is a cop down in DC. So my mom's side of the family, this investigative, like my mom's side of the family would be Jimmy Stewart, would put it all together, would crack the case. And this, I don't know that I really have that gene. I don't know that I don't have it, but I certainly don't have it like they do. And watching this movie confirmed that for me, because I don't know, I just was like, why do we care that he left with his trunk at 2 a.m? Maybe it's, maybe he's going to see a hooker. I don't know. I'm not in Lars's life, but I guess Jimmy Stewart is. Anyway, Sarah, before I digress and throw this whole episode off the path, I'll kick it back over to get back on track.
No, that's fair. I think I have the same kind of criticism with books a lot of times, is I think that authors don't give the readers enough credit for what they're able to piece together on their own. And so I get frustrated when reading that it's over explained, or we're frequently reminded of things like we're going to jump in midway through the book like it's a TV show or something like that. And I think this movie is a good example of allowing the viewers to do some of the work. And maybe it was too much work in some cases, but it certainly wasn't spoon-fed to you by any means.
Absolutely.
But as you mentioned, Sam, Jeff only discusses his findings whenever there's somebody else in the room. So he starts to share his concerns with Stella and with Lisa. And initially, they are both pretty skeptical Though I think Stella just likes the idea of having a puzzle to solve. So I feel like she jumps in a little bit faster than Lisa does.
Well, I will say this. Lisa does end up giving him the business quite a bit before she sees it for herself.
Yes.
And I was like, thank you for being the Greek chorus, because we don't have all the information. I haven't seen it before. Again, it's just from Jimmy Stewart's point of view. So you're thinking, okay, it could be this or it couldn't be this. And I like that Lisa presented the entire other side of the case on why he's probably crazy. And she even said things like, so he's going to murder his wife, Jimmy, and he's going to wash the machete in full view of you. And I'm like, yes, Grace Kelly, go for it, because talk to him the way that he talks to you. And all of a sudden, I don't think Jimmy likes it. The problem, though, is she backs down immediately because she sees, I can't even remember what it is, him with his wife's purse or something in the apartment across the way. And they start saying, well, why would his wife have gone on a trip without her purse? And then we start to solidify that there is maybe something nefarious going on.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. They notice the purse. They notice that the mattress is rolled up and taken out. They notice that there's a large crate that is taken out as well. All seems very suspicious. So Lisa is fully invested at this point. Jimmy Stewart has a detective friend that he tries to get involved. And so the detective is able to look into a couple of things for them, finds out that the crate was just a bunch of clothes that Thorwald was sending to his wife. She was in upstate New York somewhere for her health. He was receiving postcards from her that she had arrived safely, everything was fine, and I believe was going to be joining her at some point. Kind of felt like they hit a little bit of a dead end, but we're all kind of still suspicious that something was going on. And then the friendly little courtyard dog was found dead a few days later.
Which is sad. You see him going through the courtyard. He's digging things around. He's having a happy dog life in the courtyard, right? Quite frankly, Jeff/Jimmy Stewart should just be jealous of the dog, who is literally living his best life in that courtyard.
Yep.
When the dog is found dead, it's the middle of the night and the owners rightfully are screaming. Everybody else comes to the window except for Lars. And all Jimmy Stewart can see are his glasses. And I think he's smoking a cigarette. So you can see the tail end of his cigarettes. That's just classic Hitchcock. Like, that's just amazing. Really good camera work. Really, Jimmy knows that Lars must have killed the dog because he doesn't even care enough to come to the window to see what's going on. If somebody heard a scream, he thinks everybody should come out and look what it is. What's interesting about that, though, is everybody heard Mrs. Lars scream and no one came to the window. So I really don't know what the expectations in this community are. And maybe that's something that we can address in our original play that we are writing off of this movie.
Right. I think we'll definitely establish the community rules. We'll put an HOA in place too, just to make everything perfectly crystal clear. And
here's the thing, you can make him exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that'll help clear everything up in terms of who's supposed to react when who's screaming and what's found.
I'm just saying, if his role is neighborhood watch, it makes him like Paul Blart, but at least there's a function. It takes the creepiness out of it. I will say, going back to Lisa, once they reach this point and need to get some more information, and, well, Jimmy can't leave the apartment for 6 weeks. All of a sudden, he's super into Lisa. He starts calling her his girl Friday. But he really likes the fact that she has legs and is mobile. and will take direction. You know what I mean? Like, he's go down to the courtyard and make this phone call. And then she does. And then he's like, what did you find out? He's so into her, but just because she's willing to do what he's asking her to do. And I do like that. I mean, they have a good partnership, but again, he rears his head. I know we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly here, and I promise I will lay off. I probably won't lay off the Jimmy Stewart stuff, but this will be the last dedicated piece on it. She walks in. She's Grace Kelly. She looks stunning. I mean, just stunning. Like, all of the hype around her in 2025, I was watching this movie and I thought, I get it. I feel in the halo of her 70 years later. I can't imagine what the American public in the 50s were like around Grace Kelly, right? And she has her hair pinned up a little bit in the back. And she walks through the door and he goes, what the hell did you do to your hair? Or something like that. It is so short and cried like, you're an idiot. By the way, go down and make this phone call. And she does. And I'm just like, it's yeah, that's all I want to say. Grace rocks that look. There are some things in screenplays that some lines of dialogue we can cut to make the main character a scotch more likable. I'm not even saying his rough and tumble, we're never going to get together, let's keep it status quo, whatever, men are men are men, from the 50s to the 70s to the 2020s, whatever. But, it was a choice to include in the line that her hair looked bad, and quite frankly, it did not. That's all I wanted to say.
Agreed. But much like you said, we start getting some plans into action. So Jeff is definitely taking advantage of the fact that Lisa can actually walk out of the apartment. And not only has he been a peeping Tom this entire time, but he has been photographing the courtyard with his camera. And so in looking through some of the pictures, he notices that in one of the flower beds, one of the flowers is in a different place than it was in before. So he sends Lisa and Stella down to investigate and dig through the courtyard. They're unable to find anything. And so they develop this other plan that he is going to call the apartment, get Lars Thorwald out of there. And Lisa is going to go in and look for that purse and look for any evidence she can find.
Can I just say that some of the best moments of this movie are when Miss Thelma Ritter and Queen Grace Kelly of Monaco team up and do their little female buddy cop thing. That is a highlight for sure.
Absolutely. What I love about Jeff's phone call to Thorwald is that he doesn't even try to sugarcoat it or think like, what could I do to get him out of the apartment? He just goes right for the throat with I know you killed your wife, meet me here at this time. I just couldn't believe that he was so direct about it, especially because he doesn't really try to disguise his voice or, the number that he's calling from or anything really, or even close his window, which is open. So if you listened, I'm sure you could hear his voice from the bottom of the courtyard.
I just think that he is very direct the entire movie, but I would agree with you. Number one, he doesn't care because it's not his body that's going to be on the line. It's going to be Grace Kelly's. But I would agree with you. Figure out what he's selling with your telephoto lens and say that you want to buy whatever he's selling. I agree with you. There's no ounce of any type of subtlety or anything like that. So obviously, Lars leaves to try to figure out what's going on, and he knows that somebody's onto him. So that really raises the stakes as we see Grace Kelly run across the courtyard and start moving from room to room through Jimmy's purview. Now, Jimmy I'm sorry, his name is Jeff. I do this on the podcast. I know I do this. I interchange the character name with the actor name. Everybody that's been listening to us knows that, but it's nice.
Too.
Yeah, it's a nice playoff between Thelma and Jimmy as they're watching her go through the apartment. And I will say, I mean, you just know that Lars is going to come back. So at this moment, I was just holding my breath
Lisa is able to find the purse. She finds Mrs. Thorwald's wedding ring in the purse. And when they realize that Thorwald is going to come back and catch her, they end up calling the police. And she gets arrested, of course, but at least she's out of there. And as that whole interaction is happening, she does put the wedding ring on and kind of signal to Jeff across the way that she found the ring and that she has it with her. At this point, Thorwald decides to actually be observant about what's going on around him. And he notices that she's signaling across the courtyard to Jeff, pieces it all together, and realizes that he's the person who's onto him.
So Lars starts with the ancillary problem, not the root of the problem, and goes back into the apartment. Jimmy Stewart picks up the phone and calls the police right away and says there's a man attacking a woman before he's even in the apartment. So I guess he's got props for speed. That being said, Lars kind of ragdolls and shakes Grace Kelly. She's screaming. And all Jimmy Stewart is doing is crying in his wheelchair like, oh my gosh, no, Grace, Kelly, get out of there. Lisa, you got to get out of there. And I'm just thinking, you are such a dick. Like, you send her to go do this. You have no coverage. You have no type of anything. And yeah, okay, you call the police, but again, you have one broken leg and he was totally fine sending her over there knowing she could get hurt. And then he didn't do anything. I mean, he doesn't have a gun in that apartment. He can't make a commotion. It almost felt like he didn't want to give himself away when that was happening, but she was potentially dying.
Exactly. Yes. Not the time to be subtle by any means.
The one time he's at a loss for words in this movie is when we could have used his direct gift of gab.
At this point, Thorwald is aware of Jeff kind of seeing probably more than he should have, because he left the blinds up a lot of the time. And so we get what for me was my nightmare growing up, the super intense moment where Jeff is in his apartment, he can't move anywhere. He's just in his wheelchair. And Lars Thorwald has decided to come across and confront him. At first, he just starts kind of asking questions. Why did you do this? What do you want from me? What's it going to take? I don't have any money. What do I need to do to fix this problem? And Jimmy Stewart is like, I mean, you killed your wife. Like, there's not really much that you can do to fix it at this point. And so then
But why do you care, Jimmy?
Right. I don't know.
Why do you care? He says all this stuff. He has all this stuff. And then I will say this, that Lars shows up in his apartment, and I agree with you. This was the moment because while I was watching it, I was like, okay, this is okay. It's like, but as all of Hitchcock's things do, it reaches a climax where all of a sudden he's standing in the apartment with him. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? And Kat has Jimmy Stewart's tongue because he realizes, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't move at all. And this guy's probably going to just kill me.
He uses what little resources he does have, which is the flash to his camera. He sets off his flash once, and then Thorwald is kind of momentarily blind, and then sets it off again and again. And it happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens 3 or 4 times, and it stuns Lars every single time. I say to the screen, just look away. Like, he's gonna flash the camera in your face. Just it happens a few times.
And so he finally runs out of flashes, or Lars Thorwald finally figures out, just close my eyes. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but then he finally gets his hands on him and he's like hanging him out the window. Jimmy Stewart's trying to fight back as much as he can with one leg. Right around that same time as he's like hanging out of the window, Lisa and Stella and Doyle with the police. Thorwald is arrested. They are able to find quite a bit of evidence that he did in fact kill his wife. In the garden bed, we do find what was buried there, and I believe pieces of his wife have kind of been scattered all over town. So that proves that Jeff's inference with all of the evidence was true. At the end, we see that Jeff does have a newly broken leg, or a re-broken leg from falling out of the window, and he is sitting with Lisa. What I thought was kind of an interesting thing is that Lisa's reading a National Geographic magazine and he falls asleep and she switches it out for like a Harper's Bazaar or Variety or something that's a little more her speed. So it seems like their relationship might still be just status quo at the end of the movie.
I took it the other way. I thought that it was a sign that they were gonna stay together and she was just willing to be malleable for him.
That's
but
fair.
maybe but it could be that way. I was just quite frankly, Sara, wanting Grace Kelly to say, you sent me on a suicide mission. You did nothing. You're back in this apartment. I get that you're here for another 3 months, but you need to nut up or shut up. And quite frankly, I was just so annoyed to see them happily lounging in the apartment that I probably just missed the whole thing. So I would defer to you, Sara, on that as a regular watcher.
I was going to say it's probably up for interpretation because I think you could honestly take it either way. He does mention several times throughout the movie how, and I think we've talked about this, how his lifestyle isn't conducive to her lifestyle. And so I think maybe she's trying to prove that she's changing or willing to change, or things are just the same. So I think it's up to viewer interpretation.
It just drives me nuts. He's like, you go to parties and you do your hair and you look really nice, and I'm a serious National Geographic photographer. It's like, get over yourself. You solved a little courtyard murder. And actually, I would say she did
pretty much
just as much, if not more, because she's the legs of the operation and she's more of the brains than he would ever give her credit for. But I digress. That is Rear View by Alfred Hitchcock.
So, Sam, I think our viewers are pretty clear on your stance on the Grace Kelly, Jimmy Stewart relationship in this movie, but let's talk about the movie as a whole to wrap it up. So, after watching Rear Window for the first time, would you recommend it to someone else?
I think I would recommend it definitely to somebody else, but I think it would have to be somebody that enjoys Hitchcock, and I would recommend other Hitchcock movies before Rear Window. That being said, it was just such a unique viewing experience for the first time that I think that that's fun for somebody to do if they go in blind and they don't know what it is. So, yes, I would say to watch it, but I like Strangers on a Train more.
That's fair. We've already kind of talked about how you have this appreciation for Hitchcock. So I guess the question I was going to ask was, would you continue watching Hitchcock? But it sounds like that's already happening. So let's change it up a little bit. Obviously, Grace Kelly, stellar, pinnacle, can't do without her. Jimmy Stewart, would you watch other Jimmy Stewart movies?
Yes, I can separate Jimmy Stewart from his character, and he's a good actor. I get why he was such a big deal. I was really excited to see him in the role. Again, I know he had a big, prolific film career, but honestly, I've pretty much only seen him, as I said before, in It's a Wonderful Life. So, yes, I would check out more Jimmy Stewart movies, of course. I don't know that I would write a paper about him in high school, but I would definitely check out more Jimmy Stewart movies.
Would you go to the Jimmy Stewart Museum?
I would go to the Jimmy Stewart Museum with you because part of the fun would be watching you in the Jimmy Stewart Museum.
That's fair. That's fair. So wrapping it up, let's compare it to A Little Debbie.
So I really had to think very hard about this one because there were elements that I like that's Hitchcock. There were things that I enjoyed, but there are just some other Hitchcock movies that I enjoyed more. So I was thinking about going with the cookies and cream brownie because it's in the brownie lineup, but it doesn't hit as well as the other ones. But then, if I remember our reviews correctly, which quite frankly, how could you forget the disappointment of that one because it was a layer of nothing? I don't think that that's fair. So I'm going to change it up and I'm going to say it is the jelly cream pie, which for our family listeners, if you do not remember, that is 2 cookies with jelly, marshmallow in the center, covered in chocolate. And I would say it is this one because I enjoy it. I enjoy the raspberry or the jelly in the center of that cream pie. It is chocolate. It feels like a novelty, but it's comfortable to some of the things that I've eaten in the past. Would it be the first one I grab? No, but if it's on the table, as I would say, oh, is that a jelly cream pie? I haven't had one in a long time. So I think that is how I will view Rear Window. I finally said the name right in closing. Also, just seeing how iconic it is, I'm sure it's going to pop up more now that I'm aware of it in the culture. And so I think I will always have a very, very soft spot like the marshmallow in the jelly cream pie because it was really the movie that not only made me completely fall in love with Grace Kelly, but also introed me to a Miss Thelma Ritter. So I think that the jelly cream pie is very solid, very sweet, very great addition. That's what I would review it. Sarah, how about you?
So I'd actually compare it to one that we haven't talked about yet, but I think
Did you do this in the last one too?
I did. I'm just like really
listen. These are future forward episodes, Sarah.
I'm sorry. So the one that I'm comparing it to is the chocolate cupcake, like the filled with the white with like the little white swirl across the top. I think hopefully you know which one I'm talking about.
I know which one you're talking about, but only because as we're going through, because for our family listeners, we are coming to the end. We are seeing some of the end of the tunnel on the Little Debbie things. And that's one that I know that I have not had, but I would be interested. Explain it to me.
So when I think of Little Debbie's that I gravitate towards, this is not one of them, but it is one that every time I have one, I really appreciate it. It's nostalgic for me because this is another one, maybe not necessarily Little Debbie brand, but I remember having these chocolate cupcakes of some variety in my house growing up. It's something that I know my parents enjoyed, that I enjoyed as a kid, that I can definitely appreciate as an adult. And so in that same capacity, I almost said rear view window. Oh my gosh, we've been talking about it too long.
It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Tay. Sorry.
Rear Window is nostalgic for me because I remember watching it growing up. I have very strong feelings about it growing up. And it's not something that I watch frequently as an adult, but whenever I do, I'm reminded of how much I enjoy it, much like the chocolate cupcakes.
Something, Sarah, that I really love about this podcast is when we are picking these things, we don't talk much in advance about why we're recommending them. Again, I think that what our family listeners need to know is that this conversation and the conversations that we have on this pod are all organic. We plot out how we're going to talk about the movie, but the person that's leading the episode does that. And so it really helps for some organic conversation. I'm just continually happy and impressed that what we're picking, the other person has some sort of affinity for or connection to. So, for example, you had no idea that I liked Alfred Hitchcock. You had no idea that I've been rewatching some of his stuff. And then subsequently, I had no idea when you put this on the list of what we were doing, because again, I don't research things before I watch them because I have to have like authentic responses and vice versa, that I was just so surprised that it was Hitchcock and it's so cool. So again, we love doing this podcast, but I just personally love doing it because what's been really great about it is that we find so many things that maybe we have in common that we unearth things all the time. And it's just so sweet. It's so sweet.
I love it.
I love you. Okay, that's gross. Sorry.
It's gross. We need to stop. Well, that is it for this episode on Rear Window. If you have thoughts on Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock, Thelma Ritter, Grace Kelly, Jimmy Stewart, let us know. You can find us on Instagram at FauxFamPod.
You can email us at foreignandfamiliarpod@gmail.com. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for eavesdropping on us.
If you can't get enough of the Cousin Chronicles, head over to Instagram and follow at FauxFamPod for more in-depth info and behind-the-scenes details.
Or email us at foreignfamiliarpod@gmail.com.
Foreign and Familiar is a Flynn & Flynn production.
The theme is Colorful by Allerlie von Nicolai.